Let's take a look at some charts on Decred from this week's article on Brave New Coin. So Decred is a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake coin that had an initial pre-mine and is currently 59% mined of the total 21 million. Decred is a Bitcoin code base fork, meaning that it does have some relationship with Bitcoin. Now you can argue with me on this all you want, but just Google it for yourself. The Decred developers developed Bitcoin's BTC Suite forked, repository forked from to Decred. So, you know, it's not worth arguing over. I don't know why this comes up every single time I post an article on Decred. I think it's people projecting their own assumptions about what a Bitcoin fork is in a negative connotation. I don't see this as a negative connotation at all. But anyway, looking at total notional value of all the staking coins, here's Decred here. And in the article I compared Decred to Dash a lot. Dash is here on the notional bubbles. From an outsider to a layman, they are very similar. Both are hybrid proof of work, proof of stake. Both have on-chain mixing capabilities, privacy capabilities, DEX capabilities. They have a treasury for development. They have decentralized governance for proposals, stuff like that, to spend that treasury. So they're very similar. And if we break them down head to head, Dash leads most of the categories that I usually pay attention to anyway. Transactions per day and daily active addresses is probably the most important. Now for both of these coins, if you compare it to other coins, these values are going to be inflated because of on-chain mixing or coin join, stuff like that. You have to ask yourself, does a transaction and daily active address on Dash and Decred, for example, should that be weighted the same as a transaction and a daily active address on Bitcoin or ETH or Monero, which has similar on-chain mixing capabilities? So I don't know, that's for you to decide, but something to keep in mind that really these two are, to me, the closest relatives as far as how they look and feel and what they do, what they're capable of. Now, Decred has a weird ticket system for proof of stake. I explain it in the article, but it's based on a supply and demand system. So if demand goes up, prices go up for the tickets. Overall, the hash rate has stayed flat over the past year, as has the difficulty. It's had peaks and troughs, but overall it's basically pretty flat. It's come down a little bit towards the end of the year. If we look at the hash rate distribution, now this would be a big deal if this was a sole proof of work consensus algorithm, because we have two pools with 80% of the total. So if they were ever to collude, which isn't something easy to do, but is possible on a purely proof of work network, then they could reverse transactions, censor transactions, gatekeep transactions, all that sort of stuff. Because Decred is hybrid proof of work, proof of stake, it's much more difficult. I don't have an estimate as far as the security budget, what it would take to 51% attack Decred, but I'm sure it's not infinity, especially with two pools controlling 80% of the network and one pool almost controlling 51% of the proof of work on the network. So I definitely would be more comfortable if I was a Decred maximalist to see solo miners take a bigger slice of this pie than these large pools. If we look at the ASICs for Decred, Decred uses the Blake 256R14 algorithm, and about half of the ASICs are in profit. There were no ASICs in 2020 that were created, and based on the hash rate and difficulty, I don't expect any in the works, because if they were, we would see that first in hash rate and difficulty. Typically you see covert mining before announcements of ASICs, and we're not seeing that so far. So I wouldn't expect anything anytime soon as in the ASIC realm for Decred. If you look at transactions per day and average transaction values, both have hit multi-month and transactions per day, multi-year highs at this point over the past few weeks. Price had a nice little pop over the past week or so. So all this is slowly starting to come together for Decred, coming out of the multi-year doldrums of, you know, nobody caring about it, basically. That's obviously a broad generalization, but most people are excited about other things that aren't Decred in the crypto world. So to see transactions per day pop up is bullish. I also think this is a signal that there's other stuff going on underneath the hood here with the coin join, with the DEX thing coming online soon. From what I could tell, it's still in testnet phase, but it's ready to be released in the next release of 1.6.0, I think it was. So it's definitely coming soon. I don't know if, Waves has a DEX. I don't think it's going to be Stellar has a DEX. I don't think it's going to be this amazing thing that's going to make Decred just explode in price. I just think it's another thing that a network can do. And if a network can do it, then they say, sure, let's do it, right? If you look at NVT, inverse metric of economic utility, and active addresses hit a new all-time high over the past week. This is on the monthly time frame. So to see that is incredibly bullish. To see NVT drop to all-time lows and rise again, not as bullish. Definitely says price is probably going up a little too fast for on-chain activity. But it's definitely on the lower third or fourth of the historic range for NVT. So to see transactions pop up, to see active addresses pop up, all that's bullish. One thing that's a little weird is the Decred Google Trends didn't pop up. So there's a bit of a bearish divergence there, because if you see a pop up in price, you usually see new people coming to the ecosystem. And you usually see a way to quantify that with a Google Trends. But there really hasn't been, if you look at Link or Tezos, you'll see pops with price. You don't see that here with Decred. So I don't really know what that's about exactly. Just a small thing to sort of pay attention to, because the on-chain stuff looks great, even though all of it may not necessarily be new people, just a new way to use the network. There definitely hasn't been a lot of activity in Google search interest for Decred. Over the past 2 years, it's basically flat. Let's look at some technicals. We have the yearly pivots, VPVR, 5200 EMAs, RSI, and volume. This is Poloniex. Probably looks better on a different exchange, but Polo has multi-year history of the price. So volume here is kind of meaningless because Polo doesn't really have much volume anymore. But nonetheless, trend metrics look really good. Bullish 5200 cross. That looks substantial for the first time since 2018. I mean, it's had small crosses here. This was a failed cross. This was a small cross that didn't go anywhere. So it's finally doing something, with a cross to the bullish direction. I don't see a chart pattern or anything here that looks like it's going higher or anything like that. It just looks like a bullish trend. It's hitting this previous consolidation zone. It had an M double top here that broke down. So it's going to take some time to build up. I think 50 is the next level as far as psychological resistance is concerned. There's probably a yearly pivot. The R2 is at 50 probably. And there's definitely some resistance here between 25 and 30. But overall, this looks probably the best it's looked in 2 years trend-wise. No bear div on RSI just yet, arguably. I mean, it did make a higher high on equal momentum, which isn't mega bearish, but it's definitely not bullish. You want to see more momentum with higher prices. Looking at the cloud, I zoomed way out. We can look at the weekly, the daily, the 12-hour, whatever you want to look at. But if I want to be sure that a trend is flipped, I look at some random time frame like the 3-day. All right, let's zoom way out of the daily. Since 2018, price has not been above the 3-day. It's gotten messy. It's attempted several times, similar to those 5200 crosses. It's attempted and failed several times, but this is the first time it's actually making higher highs and actually reversing a trend here. So it does look super strong on the USD pair in that regard. The BTC pair as well. I mean, we're talking again a 2-year downtrend where it just got denied at the 200. It got denied at the cloud over and over and over again over the past 2 years. There's a massive volume level at 0025 historically. So I'd expect price to move to that area if this trend lasts. But again, it's above the 200 for the first time for multiple days since 2018. It's flipped green on the cloud again, bullish on the cloud again. Overall, this looks really good. So fundamentals are popping up with price, which is what you want to see. So I do think 2021 will be a good year for Decred, in that it won't be straight down like it has been for the prior 2 years. I like $50 on the USD pair, and I like 0025 or 0026 BTC on the Decred BTC pair.